We've heard quite a bit about fake news from the Trump administration and from Republicans whenever there's anyone in the media who has the audacity to criticize anything they're doing. Now, it's interesting that fake news is usually a criticism coming from the right wing when you consider the fact that the Governors Association, the Republican Governors Association, took out a media organization online without disclosing that they were the individuals behind it. So they started publishing under a publication that is 100% Republican propaganda, right? It's run by the Republican Governors Association, but they didn't disclose that to any of the readers until the Associated Press investigated it and found out about it. The name of the publication is the Free Telegraph, and they have a Facebook page, they have a website, and what they do is they go ahead and publish all sorts of pro-Republican news articles. Now, interestingly enough, it's not just Democrats or liberals that are criticizing them for this, it's also Republicans who say, look, you gotta disclose what the bias is here. You have to disclose that this is put forward by the GOP Governors Association, and you guys have failed to do that. And so their Facebook page still does not disclose that, but at least at this point, their website does. I'll give you a little bit more of the specific criticism in just a second, but what do you think?
I'm not that bothered by it. It doesn't really, I love, I know Rick Tyler, who's a Republican spokesperson, he's critical of it.
Yes.
But I mean, Fox News is the same thing, right? I mean, it's essentially the same thing. They're telling you a one-sided story about what's going on. These people are trying to dupe you in a way, which is unfortunate. But I think that you have to use your head a little bit when you read this stuff and see where you're getting it and what you're doing. I think people have become lazy, and I'm not that bothered by it. I'm not surprised by it. I'm not that bothered by it. Of all the things that are bothering me today, this is low on that list, though I understand that it's deceptive, and there's a lot about politics that is terribly deceptive.
So I'm bothered by it and extremely bothered by it, and I would feel the same way if it was a group of Democrats doing the same thing, because
journalistically,
yes, because it's intentionally misleading when you don't disclose the organization behind the publication and the political biases that play a role, then you're doing a disservice to readers. It is propaganda. And by the way, that is not just a criticism coming from me or from liberals. As you mentioned, Rick Tyler, who is a Republican communications veteran. I mean, he's worked with Ted Cruz and all sorts of people that we're not fans of. He said it's propaganda for sure, even if they have objective standards and all the reporting is 100% accurate. So again, if it's coming from a particular organization like the GOP Governors Association, then there's obviously a political slant there. And so what they do is they publish all sorts of articles that are very positive toward Republicans, very positive toward what's going on in terms of what lawmakers are doing in Texas right now with Hurricane Harvey response, but they won't do the same thing when it comes to Democratic governors.
Right, because they're the Republican Governors Association. That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's a bit of inherent laziness on the part of the reader that doesn't look into it. And I get what you're saying, and I love Rick Tyler. I really do. I think he's wildly smart, and I respect that he is criticizing this. I just don't. I think in the age of the internet, the age of the internet, so much is unchecked that it falls on the viewer / reader / listener to follow up on what it is that you're taking in.
But if it's not disclosed that it's coming from the GOP Governors Association, how are they going to know? In fact, they didn't even, they didn't take out the URL in the normal way people do, where you can find out who. Who's behind the website. So for instance, they did this by domains by proxy, or with domains by proxy, a company that allows the originators of the website to shield their identities. Why did they do that? It was intentionally misleading. And so even if you're like, up on what's going on with fake news and you're very aware of propaganda, I mean, you have to do significant digging to figure out what's going on behind the scenes.
You are going to win this argument. There's no question about it. I'm just not that bothered by it. I think it happens all the time. I think that it's too bad that it happens. It's too bad that people don't look further into it. But I'm not going to fight very hard against it, because it still is what you're saying that it is. That's all. I'm just not that bothered by it.
And also, I mean, just spending time on Facebook during the past election, Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a certain level of, I don't know if laziness is the right word, but there's a lack of media literacy, right? And it's not, media literacy isn't even a thing that's ever discussed. And so people will come across the most outlandish things on social media and just, take it at face value. And
but I think it's laziness, because I think it goes back to the story we were talking about with those 9 senators that Vox did. That there's a laziness on the part of these US senators, obviously, saying, well, I agree with it because it's not Obamacare, right? That's lazy. Well, it's the same thing. If they asked questions and they looked into it and they still believed it, that's different. I believe that Ted Cruz read this legislation and understands it and just despises Obamacare and despises socialized medicine, despises the states taking care of. That's his view. It's why I disagree with him so much. But I do think it's laziness, and I think it's pervasive because of how much information there is to take in that we can't possibly check it all. So this is a loophole that these people are going through. It's like, all right, we can do this and nobody's gonna take us to task for it. And in the old days, they wouldn't have been able to get away with it. And now, unfortunately, they are.
If you like this video, you'll love the whole TYT network. Check it out at tytnetwork.com/join.